Daba unei Yisrael v'yichli truma me'eis kol ish asher yidvenu liboy tichu es trumasi. And it says, what do you take for the truma? Zok the pasuk v'zois ha-truma shetichu Zov, Kesef, Nechoshes, Cheles, Argomont, Lashoni, Sheish, Izim, Uris Elim. And then it says like this: Shemel Amor, take oil to light the menorah. V'samim Lashemen Hamishcha v'Likteres Hasam. Take spices, v'samim, good smelling stuff, for the Shemen Hamishcha v'Likteres Hasam. And the next pasuk is Avnei Shoyam va'Avnei Meluim la'Ephod v'La'Choshen. And it goes on to tell us that what were they doing? They were making all the Mishkan and all the Kelim with all the truma that they got from Klal Yisrael. So over here in the pasuk, just the Rishonim say, it doesn't say really anything about the Shemen HaMishcha itself. It says Shemen Lamor. It says you take oil for lighting the menorah, and besamim for the Shemen HaMishcha and Teres HaSam. It doesn't say about the Shemen HaMishcha, but the Rishonim say that it's all included in the pasuk, just like it doesn't say besamim for just like it doesn't say about the Teres HaSam. The Ramban says just like Teres HaSam doesn't say the besamim for the samim. Who adin, it doesn't say, it just says shemen for shemen samim for shemen hamishcha. We understand we need the shemen also for the shemen hamishcha as well. And the emphasis is the pasuk later on of Vayakel. It says the Nasiim brought. It says they brought the shemen lamor and the shemen for the shemen hamishcha. The daskenim as a murder kashayla says like this: Tema. Shekol parsha b'tzorchei binyan. Everything else that was told us that the Torah told us to take, that was mitzvah to take, was all for the binyan of the Mishkan and the Kelim. Chutz mi pasuk zeh, so tzorich shulchan gavoy ve'eino imer chitim lalechem aponim l'kvosam l'tuin. Doesn't say take behemoths for karbanos. So what happens? That suddenly we mix in Shemen Amor, some Shemen Mishcha, take Shemen to light the menorah. It's ain't kamen koymai. We're talking about all the stuff that you need to build the Beis Hamikdash, to build the Mishkan. So this is totally out of place. So that's the Kenim says. He says the Teretz that these things were also the tzarich of the binyan. For it was the covet of the binyan. It was to be Moshe the Kelim. So it was necessary for the binyan. That's the Mahalach. That's the Kenim says. Oh, it's interesting. Another thing that's interesting is you find when it says who brought these three things, the besamim and the shemen and the avnei shem and avnei meluim. So there's a pasuk in Vayakel. It says v'nesiim eviu es avnei hashem es avnei meluim leifur lachoshin. The nesiim were the ones that brought it. Ves haboisem ves hashemen lamor u'leshemen hamishcha u'leteres hasam. They brought the boisem, which is the besamim and the shemen, for what? For lamor l'shemen hamishcha l'teres hasam. So these three things, the avnei shoyim, avnei meluim, the boisem, and the shemen lamor l'shemen hamishcha were brought by the nesiim. So there's a murder that Yedidenu R Avrohom says there was a whole story over here. We all know, Chazal say that over there it says the nesiim was missing a vav. Why? Because the nesiim said, let Klal Yisrael bring everything, and we'll be missing a yud. Because the Nesiim said, let Klal Yisrael bring everything, and we'll be mashlim. And it came at the end, it says, they had enough, there was nothing left. So they brought the Avnei Shem, Avnei Meluim, they brought these stuff. So the Shaila is the Pashta Shaila also. What do you mean there was still stuff missing? The Avnei Shem, Avnei Meluim, the Shemen, what does it mean that they said that that everything was done, and they were stuck bringing the Avnei Shem, Avnei Meluim, they brought the Shemen. There was still stuff obviously missing, which they did bring. What's this whole thing? But Zakta Yedidenu R Avrohom that really this wasn't something that was benimtza b'chlal. The Avnei Shem, Avnei Meluim, the Shemen, the besamim. The Yedidenu R Avrohom says like this. He says what happened was there was a whole story. Anoni Shemaya Ozdun Lefishin. The clouds went to Pishin, which is a chelik of Elam Haba, and the Dalian Metaman, and they took from the Avnei Burlis Chelav Yos Avnei Shlemusa. They got these special stones that they used for Avnei Shem, Avnei Meluim. It wasn't benimtza b'chlal. the clouds went to Gan Eden and picked up the stones and brought it to the Midbar, and the Nesiim went out and they brought the stones in. And he says the same thing was by the Shemel Amor and the Shemel and the Basamim. It says the same thing. They went to Gan Eden, they picked up Shemel Amor, the Shemel Amishka, and they brought it. Murdik Nes, it wasn't an Imtza B'chlal. These three things, the Avnei Shoyim, Avnei Muluim, the Shemel Amor, were brought by the Nesiim. There was nothing left. It was done. Everyone was stuck. These three things, for some reason, they weren't benimtza, and he needed a nest to bring them. What's the? Says the other things also. The next pasuk it says, the Seisvun Anoni Shemaya Ozn Gan Eden. They went to Gan Eden again. The Nasvim Mitaman Yos Busmo Bechira. They bought Besamim. The Yas Mishcha de Zeislan Rusa, and they bought the Shemel Amor. The Yas Aparsimo the Chai Limshach Rebusa Leteris Busmaya. All these things were brought with derech nest. That means it wasn't benimtza. For some reason, you needed a nest. And another thing, you find who were the ones that brought it after the Nesiim. So what's the exclusiveness of the Avnei Shoyim? Shemel Amor, he says they went. Anoni Shemai Ozen Gan Eden v'Nasvim Mitamon Yos Busba Bechir Yos Mishcha de Zeisel Anarusa. They brought the Shemel Amor. I don't know, there's different shittas. But this is the Yenis of Brazil. Of the Yenis of Brazil, that the Shemel Amor, the Avnei Shoyim, Avnei Muluim, these three things were special. So the Shas, what was the grace, the big thing that this he needed an S, and it was a tzava right away to bring these three things together with the binyan. We couldn't wait to tell us when we did everything else that we need for the korbanos. This wasn't part of the parasha. Right in the beginning, it was important to tell us the Shemel Amor, the V'som, the Shemel Amishcha, and the Avnei Shoyim, Avnei Muluim. And who brought it? The Nesiim. So I know the Welt says, I don't know where I once saw it, but the Nesiim, every time it says Nasi, what's referred to in the Torah, it says Nasi by Avram. It says Nasi Elikim Ata B'Seichenu. The reference to a Nasi, someone that elevates himself, is all reference to others. Why? Because you see it says on Nesiim, Huku B'Bnei Yisrael, Hem Nesiim, they got klept for Klal Yisrael, they were the Shotrim and Mitzrayim. They're the ones that took the klep for others. It says Nasi ba'amcha loisar. Every time it says Nasi, it's always in reference to ba'amcha. It's ba'amcha that together with, it says, the Rebbe used to say, it says by the Kohen Gadol, Kohen HaGadol me'echav, he says, Gadol me'gadleu me'shalachav. So Chazal say, the Rambam brings down that you're supposed to give him money to be above, he should be respected. The Rebbe used to say, Gadleu Mishalachav, his godless came Mishalachav from that he was busy and cared about his brothers and took care of them. That's where he steigt from. That's the Yesod of Nesiim as well. Nesiim are people that were Nasi Ba'amcha, they elevated themselves by being involved in the klal and taking care of whatever the klal was necessary. That's how the Nesiim elevated and they grew. And that was where the Aliyah came from. That's the Yesod of the Nesiim. I once heard a beautiful vart. I don't remember who said it, but we say Matzah Shabbos is a story that we say. Ish chassid haya b'limaz in a michya. There was this chassid that had no food, and he went out to the marketplace. His wife sent him out. He didn't have a dime, and Eliyahu Hanavi appeared to him, and Eliyahu Hanavi told him that, you know what, sell me for a slave. You need money, sell me for a slave. And like this, you'll have money. And the whole story follows that he sold Eliyahu Hanavi for 800,000 zehuvim and $800,000. And and the guy that bought this Eliyahu Hanavi told Eliyahu Hanavi, I want you to build me a palace if you're in construction, and as soon as you're done, I'll free you. And it says Eliyahu Hanavi stood over there and he davened to the Rebbeinu Shalom b'emtza halayla. And he said, Rebbeinu Shalom, I only did this l'chvoidcha. I wanted this guy to have money. And the Rebbeinu Shalom sent down malachim, a whole story, and by the morning the whole palace was finished and the guy freed Eliyahu Hanavi. Moridik is miris. The shaila is, what's Pashup Shan the story? Eliyahu Hanavi couldn't stand. This guy needed $800,000. Eliyahu Hanavi should stand right away in the morning, meet him in the marketplace, take out a siddur and daven Rebbeinu Shalom. This kid over here needs $800,000. Give him money. But he has to go sell himself for an eved. Then he got $800,000, and then he had to get free, but he couldn't just go free. So he had to daven from malachim to come to build a whole palace. Push the shaila. So the Teretz says that a nest that he was davening for, the Rebbeinu Shalom should make a nest that the palace should be built. It doesn't come down with davening. Mysterious nefesh v'atzveita. If you're ready to give yourself over, you must a nefesh for someone else. That's where the schus for a nest comes from. That's the yesod of Nisim. When you want something special to happen, you do something extra, something which is a ma'ila m'derech hateva on your part for someone else, and that brings the schus of a nes. The yesod is the Nesiim over here. They were the ones that Ba'etzim was Nasi Ba'amcha. They were the ones that gave themselves over for Klal Yisrael. So they were the ones, these three things. Shemen is Shemen Amor. Shemen Amishcha. The Rambam says Shemen Amishcha has no Me'ilah. You know why? Because the whole purpose of Shemen Amishcha is to Makadish other Kalim. Its purpose is not for itself. Ba'etzim has no Kedusha. Its whole Metzias is that it's Makadish other Kalim, that makes other Kalim Kaddish. Shemen Amor. The purpose of Shemen is Lamar is to light up for others. B'samim, the smell is not for itself. B'samim is a purpose to make something else smell. The some mitziyusin that its whole purpose was for something else. Those mitziyas, that being of something that's whole existence, is for something else. Avnei shoyim, avnei meluim. Chazal say that they would malamed. It says the first of all, it says l'kacher l'chana. He was made for the kohen gadol. Its purpose again was to makadosh the kohen gadol. So you have everything, since its purpose was for something else, therefore these things were so important. Even b'shas the binyan, when the Rebbeinu Shalom is telling the binyan, these three things we're going to make sure to mitzvah right now that you should put together these three things, and these three things needed a nest, and the only one to be zeichel in this nest was the Nesiim, that they cared for others and they brought about these three things. Let's all be zeichel, think of our day and do for others. We don't see them.